Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. ccgprime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as fowlibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at fowlibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer patrons Shukong Fu, Vite Ramen, and Maxime Van He. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Up you.
Cool. And now that you have no
Hey there, rulers! Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will to your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast. It's Office Hours, your favorite ever podcast featuring myself, Demo73, and replacing Mike with Paul, because I apparently in spoiler season can only have one of them. We have Paul Reisman.
Today's letter is the letter T. Is it time to talk about spoilers?
Hey, I dig it. Or Timelords, because of Typhon's Heart. I tried. Anyway, before I get started, I do just want to say thank you all so much for being here. If you like what we're doing, you want to consider supporting the channel, go ahead and click that join button down below. It goes to support the channel, as well as gets you cool perks like the emotes and all kinds of other things. The other cool thing is that you can go actually check the link in the description right now. Odyssey Games does have pre-orders of this set available right now. So you can go pick up your boxes. They are just doing boxes this time around. They're not doing pre-release kits for pre-order. That's because of the shift in the design approach to the pre-release kits. We're not exactly sure what those are going to entail or how those packs are going to be different. So to stick to a more safer product line, they're just doing boxes this time around. It also is a little bit easier for them to manage, like getting a lot more in and shipping stuff when they just go for the boxes. So with the shift, that's what's happening for Odyssey this time around. But you can get them right now. You can go pre-order boxes right now. So, Paul, we talked about all the rulers last week when you weren't here. Before we get into the first card of the night, what of the four rulers are you most excited about?
Wait, is there a blue ruler?
Technically there's 3 blue rulers.
I don't see any blue rulers in this lineup.
There's Typhon, who is a black ruler but also is blue, so I guess not Typhon. There's Zeus, who is 5-color singleton, and then technically Dragonflame has blue in his color wheel.
It's got blue in his art too. We're gonna go with Dragonflame.
Okay, there we go.
New
Yeah, it's
best ruler. You heard it here. It's the Mikage of this set.
He's the Mikage of this set. Tier 0. Tier 0.
See you, Toby.
Let's get some Mikages in the chat for Tier 0 Mikage. I think I have a... Do I have a Rhea emoji? I do have a Rhea emoji. Rhea's in the chat for Mikage 2-0.
Best black card ever printed, Rhea.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, speaking of good black cards, we have our first card today. It is Typhon's Heart. It is one of the Marvels. It is why we have a Time Lord reference, because this card has 2 hearts in the card art. I tried. Hey.
Typhon's Hearts.
Typhon's Heart. Multiple. So 4-drop 040 machine villain. You cannot lose the game while the card is on the field. When this card leaves the field, you lose the game. And then if it's revealed, it has Force Resonance Infinity, which is Typhon's. When this card is revealed from outside the game, your life becomes your starting life again. Put the card into the field, discard your hand, draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. Paul, it is Typhon's reset button. What do you think?
I think you only play it in your sideboard. You never play it in your main board, ever. Because it is a worse stand token.
I think it is I think it's like maybe 1 or 2 copies from the sideboard. And the reason why I think it's maybe 1 to 2 copies is because there is a world where if you stack this, like, I think it's 2 copies because you kind of want this scenario where you maybe have the option to try to reveal 2 at once if that makes sense. A card that we're already seeing discussed a lot as we look at a lot of these reveals from outside the game, which is your sideboard, is we're looking at Origins of the Seven Lands, the Edition Marvel. So, like, there are ways to reveal this outside of ordering off of Typhon, and so the idea of having multiples so you can kind of set it up so that you can, like, double protect yourself or put two out at the same time, so then if one dies, you still don't lose. So yeah, like a 2, probably no more than 2 in the sideboard, and in the case of a 200 card deck, maybe you play 1 main boarded, but it certainly is just hammering home the fact that, like, Typhon ain't trying to play a match. Typhon just playing a game. Like, 1 game, that's it. Like, we're not going any further than that. So, yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty cool. I like that something like this exists for Typhon, because it also feels so. When I look at Typhon, it's very easy to draw the similarity to Dark Tree, right? In the form of this, I'm only trying to play 1 game. We're going to get grindy about it. It's going to be a little bit, like, annoying. But I almost kind of think Typhon is a more fair Dark Tree, if that makes sense. Because,
hands down.
Because, like, he actually has a life total, which is super important. He can actually lose the game from every type of losing the game. And his deck consistency is way worse than Dark Tree, right? That has to be said. His, like, deck consistency is going to be a huge thing for Dark Tree, or for Typhon. And so this card to me is nice because it extends Typhon's, like, game 1 tree 2 vibe without being, like, impressively annoying to deal with, because it naturally itself creates a lose condition, which I think is great. I mean, Fenrir kills this. Like, 2-drop Fenrir can just kill this. Right?
Let it play it. Just reveal it. Never play it.
Well, it has to come into field if it's revealed from outside of the game. So that's the big deal.
It's not how that works. It's not just when this card becomes revealed, life becomes whatever. I'll put this card into the field, then discard. Yeah.
So it's all part of the same resolution. Yep.
Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah, that's.
So it's a reset. It's a reset button that it's nice that you keep it in the sideboard for if you need it. Do I think you're going to end up using it in every single game? No. But are there times where, like, hey, reset button? Maybe, right? It's a cool Marvel. It's a very cool Marvel for Typhon. I like it a lot. Feels kind of win more. What about 0 being more tier 0 than any other really? That and it's the deck's self-destruct button on a 040. Bane also works well against a 040. Yeah, the Cthulhu, the 1-drop precision Bane Cthulhu, just like, bah, we win.
Like, if I'm forcing you to play this card, like, kind of like the flavor of the card itself, you are totally and utterly exposed, and you're just gonna die now.
Yeah, that is the big piece, right?
This is the Mott arena of this set.
I think that it has potentially more application. The thing to keep in mind with Darkness is Darkness doesn't have great protection. It's never had great protection. And every card in the main deck for Typhon has to have Darkness in it, which is why I say you play 2 in the sideboard to try to set up 2 hitting the field quickly, or, like, having a way to, in response to you killing the first one, cheat out a second one, right? So then, like, the second one protects me from losing the game from the first one, if that makes sense, right? So it's not going to be seen all the time. Paul's giving me a smirk. What's this smirk about?
I think this card is bad.
You think it's bad? I think it's bad.
I do not like this card. Like, I can never see myself playing this and being like, oh, this feels good to play. Like, again, like, I feel like if I'm being forced to play this as per the flavor of the card, I'm losing, right? That being said, like, I'm glad the raid boss deck has like if that's what it's trying to be, this card makes me feel like, oh, that's great. Like, I'm glad we actually have one of these cards that actually make it feel like a raid boss, but it doesn't feel like a card I'm like, oh, I want to play this as Typhon.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's like, it sits in your sideboard until you need it, and, like, most games you're probably not going to need it, but there might be some games where you need it, so it's nice to have it, right? Which is more than we can say for some Marvels that have existed. Looking at you, Mott! Looking at you, Mott!
This mod draws you a card.
This draws you 5 cards? So, like, still better?
But at least if bot leaves the game, you don't lose.
That's fair. Ocarina, do I think time rules might change because of Typhon? Nope. I do not think time rules are going to change because of Typhon. I think that you got to play smart against Typhon. You certainly can grind it out. We are in an era of Force of Will where it is actually very easy to establish and protect 2 to 3 grand of damage, like, consistently on your board. So you can just grind Typhon out. And I think the other thing to remember is that competitive Typhon, the most successful competitive Typhon builds are probably not going to play over 100 cards. Like, it's probably going to be exactly 100. So then you only have to deal with 10k life. It's easy to think casually people are just going to play, 600 cards and have a 20,000 life point deck. But then at that point in time, it's even worse for them to try to protect themselves from 3 to 4 grand established boards, because that's all they have, right? So, like, I played my first time ever playing against Typhon, obviously without any of the spoilers. I played 1 game with Odin, and it went really long, and I killed him, and he was at 20,000 life. Like, I did actually just kill Typhon as Odin. You can do it. You have to accept that it's going to be a grind, but it's unlike Darktree. This is what GoG said. Unlike Darktree, Typhon has no ways to prevent himself from losing. Like, he can just lose to life loss. He can just lose to damage, all those other things. So that's just an important distinction. The current world is a cool card, great flavor, but later on more sets come out. Keep this in the back of our minds if we get some donate cards or swap cards. Oh yeah, give this to your opponent and then kill it. Very cool potential application, right?
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, that'd be dope. There's definitely some cool or like your opponent's like, Valentina, steal all your stuff. Cool. In response, I'll reveal a Typhon's heart. Here you go.
So the question then becomes, because the field is just one zone, right?
Right.
And then there's like your control versus their control. So even if you swap control, it still stays on the field, so it doesn't just auto lose. Is that how that works?
Correct. But then you can just kill it while your opponent controls it, and then they'll lose.
Yeah, there's a meme deck. Build that.
What Odin
Build the meme deck.
What Odin deck did I play? We played Wanderer format. So I was playing like artillerist style Odin control. I got him down. I had a Mistletoe that was a 48-48. It turns out when his deck is pretty much all like a lot of the deck was composed of antibodies who have to attack, and who have to attack things, and Mistletoe's like, I don't take damage. Antibodies don't do much. Then you're like, great. So moving on, we got another card for Typhon. We have the third kind of, or the second, I guess, mainstay of Typhon's main deck, Typhon's Blood. 2 black. You may have any number of copies of this card in your deck. You may only play 1 card named Typhon's Blood per turn, draw a card, then produce black. Or if you have at least 6 other copies of Typhon's Blood in your grave, it's draw 2 and produce 2 black. And then if you're playing it as Typhon, it's free. If they didn't make a card like this, Typhon would literally be unplayable in my mind.
Correct.
Like, this card is exactly the kind of thing that needed to be printed to make a 100 plus, 150, heaven forbid, 200 card deck viable, right? So, again, design-wise, I really like what they're doing with Typhon. Competitive success-wise, we got to get into the grind with it, because unless your name is Minha, I don't know how to build a 200 card deck.
This card is probably my favorite card of Typhon's suite at this point.
Yeah.
Because the design of the card is, okay, I play 1. Great. I just keep producing black and going and going and going and going and going until I can just play Pot of Greed every turn multiple times.
Or you can only play one per turn. It literally says.
You only play one per turn. So you're just playing one every single turn. It's just pot of greed. A free pot of greed is pretty good.
Yeah.
That being said, because you can only play one per turn.
Yeah.
It's
Also, it's a
balanced
normal.
that way.
It's a normal.
Yeah.
So it's going to be easy. So let's talk about this. I would like to introduce you to this plus antibody being $7 full arts. Normal full arts are technically the hardest cards to pull in FoW. A specific normal full art is the hardest card to pull in FoW. And you want a bunch of these. Imagine trying to collect like 50 full art diamonds once.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Like, here's the thing. Our locals buy boxes. Our guys they get product, right? I am fully convinced that because of the amount of product we open for the channel, we are going to be the only ones who can play Typhon at the beginning of the meta. Because I don't think anyone buys that many boxes at our locals to be able to try to get as many of these as we need. We literally joked about we just have a Typhon pile. That's a communal pile of us all putting our Typhon like antibodies and bloods in one. It's like, look, you're on the rotation for this week, okay? Paul's allowed to play Typhon this week, so he can use the pile. Next week it's Josh's turn. Next week it's Jordan's turn. Because we all gonna have to pool together. But like, I'm excited to play it. Even though it's gonna be a big old meme. But it is. I can't wait to be the raid boss. And if someone wants to help me design raid boss format for Typhon, I'm in. I'm down for that. It'll be like the game from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Bonds Across Time. It's like, you get a turn, then I go, then you get a turn, then I go, then you get a turn, then I go. So I get 3 turns for every one of yours.
They simulated that, like, the boss rush, like, duel in Japan. They have that for Yu-Gi-Oh! So they have their own rules and everything, and their own cards, and it's basically just like this, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited to try to play raid boss format. I'll play it at a GP. I'll, like, design it, and then be like, welcome. I'm going to put on the gloves. Raid boss. Let's go.
Raid boss 073.
Raid boss 073 here.
We got to figure out to make your eyes glow red, and then it'll be like super great.
The true raid boss. Typhon's going to be neat. Typhon's going to be difficult to build. Typhon's going to be weird to play against and weird to play. Overall, excited, and I think they're designing him well. Moving on to our next Marvel Rare. Oh, wait, it's another Typhon card, and it's in blue. Ainsberg, Mechanized Invasion Leader, 4-drop Dragon Machine, 10/10 Villain. You may play this card from outside the game by paying 2 black rather than pay its cost. Enter, take control of target non-Magic Stone, non-J Resonator entity your opponent controls as long as this card's in the field. Revolution, it gains flying, and this card gains -X/-X, and J Resonators your opponent controls gain this card gains +X/+X, and J/Resonators your opponent control gain -X/-X, where X is the number of different names among machines you control in all public zones and machines you own revealed outside of the game. Keep in mind, Antibodies is a machine, Blood of Typhon is a machine, this card is a machine, Antibodies is a machine, you're going to be Heart is a machine, like, you're going to have a bunch of different machines, and it's not an enter effect. It's just, as soon as he hits the board, this stat neg is there. This is a pretty good card. As a board wipe and like a good, like, body, this is a good card. The steal effect is pretty mediocre, but, like, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I don't hate this either. I don't know if it deserves to be a Marvel necessarily, but maybe that last effect is the entire reason, because it's not an enter effect. It's just continuous board state.
Yeah.
That being said, and I don't know if we addressed it in the last podcast or not, but because you are revealing this thing from your sideboard, can you play this in things that have tails in the deck?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Hello.
Yeah.
Deus Ex Machina has a card.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why Wanderer, like again, Seven Tales of the Lands is suddenly seeing a lot of like talk about it in the Wanderer format, because you can just like have copies of it and like be revealing stuff from the sideboard, like antibodies to draw a card, this card to sit on its Y. Like there's a bunch of different stuff. You can just have like a little mini suite, because it always goes like mana neutral. Like Seven Kings of the Land just always goes mana neutral, so you play like a couple copies in any deck, so you can see it fast enough. Which is, who would have thought that that card would have suddenly come back into like viability, which is just the cool like Wanderer space, right?
Suddenly a better Marvel than Mott.
Hey,
That being said, it's also a dragon, so there's like all of the dragon support
yeah,
that can, bring this thing to your hand. Dragon's Call, one of my favorite tutors from way back in Rhea Block. Fushi being able to flip into this and grab it from the deck and steal something else, so it's a decent card for him as well, and it's a 4-drop, and it's in his secondary color.
Typhon has had
Dragon Flame.
Typhon, yeah. I mean, it is a dragon, so you can play it in Dragon Flame because he's a villain ruler. Typhon,
that too.
Typhon had 2 marvels. Like, what is there a marvel increase? Well, technically, every set's had 5 marvels, so it's typically been 1 for each ruler and then a generic. Because Typhon is needing to take up so many cards, it kind of makes sense to me that they give him 2 marvels, and then the others will all have 1. So every ruler will still have a quote-unquote marvel, but then instead of a generic marvel, Typhon just gets 2. One that's like a utilitarian, not going to use it very often, and one that's like an actual main board like threat. That to me is probably how that breakdown goes. Overall, I mean, the best part about it is you just sit on him, right, until you need him. And like castable off of like by the time you have a bunch of different machines revealed, Typhon's Blood is probably online. So then suddenly like this card is free, right? You just play Typhon's Blood for free, make 2 black, draw 2 cards, play Einsberg. Like Typhon is being designed in a space that he makes up for the inconsistency of the main deck with the side deck. And as such is really heavily playing towards that I'm just playing one game. And I really like that design for it. It makes it feel very unique. It makes it feel like it's going to be engaging. We just need to see exactly how flushed out he can make his deck without making himself too inconsistent or too one note, right? Because if all you're doing is playing antibodies and drawing cards off of blood, then like there are going to be decks that are just like, yeah, okay. Like you didn't kill me fast enough. Battle comes to an end. Call, because we're seeing that card's seeing main deck play, right? That card is seeing current main deck play. That like suddenly your opponent goes Blood of Typhon or antibodies, and you're like, that's like a third of my deck. Unfortunate. So yeah, cool stuff.
All these graveyard effects, though, what cards got me thinking about all these graveyard effects.
What is that?
Harvesting Season.
Yeah, that card is everywhere in the discussions too. Of like Harvesting Season. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Evil Perfect Loki.
Evil Elemental Uprising. Whoop. Oh, don't worry, you'll see the new Perfect Loki here in a minute. I don't want to play with Perfect Loki anymore. We got a new toy. We'll get to him though.
Battle comes to an end of school. Yes. Mechanized Water Soldier. 2 blue, 7/7. Remove this card in your graveyard from the game. Produce blue. Spend this will only to play machines. Union 7. So this is a new keyword where if you have 7 different named cards in all public zones or revealed outside the game, it gains this additional text. So it's like Exodia for additional text on your cards. And it's remove this card from the game, produce 3 blue, only to play machines instead. This card's pretty solid. Like, pretty solid card. Pretty much made for... pretty much made for Deus Ex Machina, because there's no real way for Typhon to play this card. But also, like, play this in Machina, reveal Einsberg from the sideboard, play Einsberg, right?
So weird incidental machine support for Deus Ex Machina, and just a good stat. I mean, 2-drop 7/7 that has incidental used later. Typhon, or we've known that Deus Ex already has a package of the deck that like mills stuff from the deck, so then suddenly this card becomes possibly playable to help follow that up a bit more. Like, it's good. Paul?
I would say this also has some applications in the Regalia Machina deck. Just because it's some investment, it counts towards your machines. It's got decent stats. It's a 2-drop 7/7, which is honestly pretty good. It's like ahead of the curve a little bit. And then later in the game, it's just like, cool. Now I can just play this to like combo out and do all my crazy stuff later on. So there's gonna be some fun stuff to do with this card for sure. I like it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Next up we have Zeus. Not Zeus's Marvel, which is strange. But it does give us a hint of what we're looking at with Zeus. So Poseidon, the second Olympian, 1 blue, 1/7. Tails. Enter, or when this card is revealed from your deck by the effect of an enter ability of a card named Order of the Olympians you control. Totally called it. You may have return up to one target non-Magic Stone, non-J ruler entity you control to its owner's hands. You can bounce something back to your own hand. Whenever this card attacks or blocks, it gets an additional 600 attack, so it's a 7/7 for 1. And then has the Union 7, but the 12 Olympians. Enter, draw 3 cards, and put a 12 Olympians from your hand into the field. So that's a thing.
Which is going to happen after the bounce.
Can happen after the bounce.
So you're going to bounce and then replay something.
So
you can reuse your Olympian gods.
You also can reuse Poseidon infinitely. So you can like put him into play, target himself to put him back in his hand, also, and then put the enter, draw 3 cheetah thing into play after him, bounce him back to his hand, draw 3, put him back in, bounce him back to your hand, draw 3, put him back in. Like, sure.
Real thing.
That's a real thing. I mean, you need 7, so like it's not gonna happen very early, but like that's a real, in a singleton deck, to suddenly give them access to potentially every card in their deck is concerning.
So it seems like this would go really well in like a new 12 Olympian suite of cards. So you could, like, outside of Zeus, you could play like 4 of this and like maybe like just a package of like 12 new Olympian gods.
Am I saying new 7
And then you just
Olympians?
have that package.
Toby, did I say new 7 Olympians? If I did, I'm sorry. It's 12. New 12 Olympians. I can read.
Sure. This is a segue. So, yeah, I like this card. It's got some interesting applications. Unfortunately, I do think that last text is really, really good when you're already winning the game.
Yeah.
Or not winning the game.
Yeah.
People have killed all your stuff. I don't know. But it is kind of like a good comeback mechanic. I mean,
yeah,
a solid 7 out of 10 for me.
It's one of these things where like Zeus feels very like when we see the order, like we've seen of the order, and we know that Odin or Zeus enters the game of gods also counts as revealing it from the order, right? So Zeus has this incredible toolbox potential, right? So the beauty of playing Poseidon is you only get to play 1, which means you only have to play 1, which means you'll grab him when you need him, which means that if his enter effect isn't super great in the situation, you don't super have to care about that because you're not going to have to risk drawing into him. You can have him when you need him, and that to me is the big strength as we go in to see more of Zeus's cards. That's going to be the strength of Zeus, is the fact that he's a singleton ruler with such specific flexibilities in terms of how he's going to make use of his deck to overcome his singleton status, that he's going to be able to pull a lot of tricks off. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the other ones do. Speaking of other Zeus cards, Water of Zeus. 1 blue, quick cast, draw a card, but if you're playing it as Zeus, it's 1 blue, quick cast, draw 2 cards. And while it's in the graveyard, you can remove this card from your graveyard from the game, play your next card named Light, Fire, Wind, or Darkness of Zeus without paying its cost. So these are clearly a spell suite that you're going to play 1 of each of the 5 so that you can fill out the deck, and they will pay for each other. So potentially very good. Even just by itself, a 1 blue draw 2 quick cast is insanely good.
Absolutely. And it's locked to Zeus, right? So like you can't just like slot this into any deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to actually use Zeus to get the multiple effect. That being said, it's also a quick cast 1 cost draw card if you need that for some reason.
Yeah, there's a better choices for that.
It's called Voice from the Void. Moving on.
So yeah, for me, the other part too is like it's 1 blue quick cast draw 2 and make a chant later free. Like that to me is like, oh, that potentially is very good. We need to see what those other spells do. There's a
yes.
It's truly making me feel like so let's talk about this, right? IU was our first singleton ruler, felt very like aggro one shot, right? That was how she was designed, right? Ragnarok came out as a singleton ruler and he was like, I can combo. I'm good at it. Look at all these things. Zeus is like, so I'm just going to be like mid-range toolbox. Like I'm a singleton ruler, but like mid-range toolbox. And I'm like, yes, please. This is the kind of singleton ruler that Jeremy would not mind building and keeping built. Because I get very frustrated with combo decks. And I've never been one to play one-shots. So I'm just like, a toolbox ruler that's mid-range or maybe control. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it, too.
I'm here for
it's
it.
Looking good.
I have high energy tonight. Let's talk about Shaka. This is Shaka.
When the walls fell.
Shaka, Shiva's successor. 1 green, 4/4, villain with Pierce. Plus, for 1 green, J resonators you control gain +4/+4 until end of turn. If this card is not ordered, play this ability only once per turn. Toby, you're making some real like hot takes about ruler competitive level when we've seen barely any of the cards. Like real hot takes. Like Mikage tier 0 level hot takes, bud. So anyway, Shaka, when he's revolutioned, if an effect would increase the attack or defense of J resonators you control, it doubles that much instead. Good old, Little Red Riding Hood style effect. But if an effect would decrease the attack or defense of J resonators you control, it increases that much instead. So this means that a neg 10 from, say, a Shmel becomes a +20/+20 to your field. Because you'll replace it to being a +10/+10, and then you replace it again to being a +20/+20. This guy's pretty good. This guy. I mean, like not insane. Because again, it has to be revolutioned. He's locked to villain. He is a 1-drop 4/4. Like stat line wise, he's not super insane. He has no natural protection, although you're playing in Shiva, so Shiva has like the eternal stuff. It feels like a better finisher for Shiva. That's like in theme of being Mimi's. Does that make sense? Like Chimimi's always kind of felt a little bit weird. But there's also a part of me that I'm like, this would be really good to shoot the Mimi, this guy in at the end of your turn. So that, because it doesn't apply or like shoot the Mimi in at the beginning of my turn and then recover, order a Shiva or order a Chimimi and then just like make my board huge and go in, right? Definitely feels like there's some potential here. I don't think he's like insane. I don't think he's gonna drastically change Shiva's playability at a competitive level. But I do think it gives her a more clear through line to finding lethal without having to use Chimimi or Grispalesta's Awakening, Secret Technique, or Grispalesta's Awakening. I
think this card is missing one keyword that would have made it really, really, really potent.
Swiftness?
Eternal.
Naturally having eternal, yes.
Because then you shoot the Mimi this thing in, and then you're like, okay, how do I kill this thing outside of a Lumia? Right? How do I get rid of this thing? That would have made it more of a threat and probably would have added more to Shiva's roster, but I also think this card is a set too late. And the revolution is exactly the way all of Shiva's cards should have been worded from the beginning to actually make use of her best card, which can't even be used.
Yeah. Swordsman. Ryan Lilly, if you coin this card out and grab a stone, does that make Swordsman a 72-72? 74-74? Oh, are you talking about the Swordsman of the Flame? That is a 3k 3k that gets -X, where X is your life. So actually it would make him even bigger than that. Because if you coin this out, grab it, and then play the Swordsman, he's getting plus 8 grand attack, plus an additional 4 from the Shiva. So it'd just be, a casual 11,400. No big deal. Or 10,400, 10,400. No, 11. 3k plus, 11,400. That as soon as you have tapped out and I kill your Shaka, you just die. Cool place.
Again, needed eternal naturally.
Yeah, needed eternal net. Which, I mean, to be fair, Shiva has ways to give her boards eternal, right? So there's some flexibility there. So it does fall in line with what Shiva's trying to do. Shaka is not an early game card. Shaka is a mid game I'm trying to push kind of card. Like I stuck a Trishula earlier. Now Shaka is live. All my dudes have eternal. We're going to push in, right? Which is totally fine. Give me a more like aggro push kind of card rather than Shamimi's weird like combo style.
This card should be named Shaka, the Walls Fell.
Because
it's so easy to kill.
Exist.
Removal does exist.
Removal does exist.
It does exist.
Removal does indeed exist. Although he doesn't have an enter effect, so like there is that, but he like you retain priority when casting him. So like there's some stuff there. Anywho, so let's move on to the card that I'm. Oh no, I actually have another Shaka card that I have to talk about. I alone am the world honored one. I alone am the world honored one. Ugh. It's like the battle comes to an end, and then it's the same kind of like really long name. So 2 green, quick cast, chant. You may play 1 green less to play this card. If you control a card named Shaka, Shiva's successor, recover target entity, draw a card. It's just a new version of Resuscitating Will.
In green.
In green. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It seems fine.
I think it's worse.
Card seems yeah, because you have to control Shaka to make it cost 1. Yeah, it's fine.
Like,
card's okay.
Moving on.
Yeah, it's a normal. It's okay. Nothing really to shake a stick at here. It does mean that, like, again, Shiva doesn't necessarily need as wide of a board to kill you, which might be a boon to Shiva. But overall, kind of meh. Overall, kind of meh. Now let's talk about the card that we're all really excited about.
The mythic text. You're right. It's true.
Gil Lapis, the Vampire Guardian.
The goodest boy.
The good boy Gil, who somehow found his way back to edgelord clothes, even though he is a good boy. 2 black, 7/7 tails, quick cast. Enter, put the top 4 cards of your deck into the graveyard, then put a resonator from your graveyard into your hand. Keep in mind, this does not target, and you will choose after you have done the mill. Revolution. Enter. Put X +1/+1 counters on this card, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. Your opponent loses Y 100 life, and J resonators your opponent control gain -Y until end of turn, where Y is the number of +1/+1 counters on this card. Again, Perfect Loki now. Feel old yet? Although infinitely better than, or infinitely middling by comparison to Perfect Loki, because he actually has to resolve his enter effect. And you can just like kill him before he gets any +1/+1 counters, and then the stat neg will be 0. So like more ways to prevent the stat neg than against Perfect Loki. Against Perfect Loki, it was just manipulation of the graveyard. Gil Lapis is I just have to kill Gil Lapis. Overall though, great card. Even outside of Revolution, a 2-drop quick cast 7/7 that lets you like mill and recur cards, like solid card.
You know what this would have been really good in? Typhon.
Yeah, but can't play it in
But can't.
But can't.
What's the mill effect on a Tails card?
I mean, it's for Athenia. It's very clearly for Athenia, but
yeah.
outside of Athenia,
Absolutely.
still a super solid card for Darkness. Like super solid card.
Yeah, I think this card is actually going to be pretty high up there in terms of its usability. Especially considering we have the remnant keyword in this game.
Yeah.
It's thinking set up your graveyard pretty well and could go in those aforementioned perfect Loki decks that we used to play but can't anymore.
Yeah, you could also use this to mill stuff. Like you could use this to, because it doesn't say what cost of resonator it is or what type. So you can like use this to grab a Lumia, which actually brings you back Wings of Light and Darkness, so that you suddenly have a spot removal card back in your hand. Like a lot of flexibility that comes with this card, which is very, very cool. Plus, I mean, it Lapis, so.
It's good boy Gil Lapis.
It's good boy Gil Lapis. Dante cannot use Gil because Dante is a villain's ruler, and this boy is a Tails.
Yeah.
So no.
We just were to
Alice
pluck
can. Alice can.
keyword off of this.
Alice can use him.
Alice can use him.
Alice can use him. So that's a thing. Keep that in mind. Bring back an IU that your opponent killed and be like, murder.
Like, oh, hey, look.
Also, Nine-Tailed Fox may have a nice tool to have for its graveyard strategy. Heck yeah, this card's a great card for Fox. Like, this card's fantastic for Fox. 2 mana unplayable. No, card's just fine.
2 mana is very good right now.
Yeah. So
he's a 7/7 for 2. I mean, that's amazing, and he's got quick cast. So like.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Necromancer of Ma'at, 1 black 4/4. Treat this card in your graveyard or removed area as 4 cards while playing the cost of spells or abilities you control. We do not have many cards at present that this card interacts with, namely things like Banquet Demon or the Goddess Palace, that kind of thing. I'm assuming it's going to be used in Athenia's suite. Like, I'm assuming that there are going to be cards for Athenia that count while playing cost or have that similar kind of you may pay X less to play this card kind of thing. So Necromancer's usability is heavily based on what those kinds of cost reduction things look like. So, Paul, any thoughts?
Yeah, I could say like this is one of those basic supports for like Spirit of Decay. It looks like in a Borozuki, because their effects depend on the number of cards that you've milled. So depending on like what you want to do, like there's a little bit of an engine there, but it's a good normal. You're gonna use it in draft. If you pull in a Borozuki, like play 2 or 3 of this in draft.
Yeah.
Spirit of Decay. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool card. Can't wait to see exactly what happens with it. There's an interesting interaction that we'll have to see about. This card's going to cause so many Q&A questions of like, does this card count as 4 resonators when doing Valentina the Crumbling Illusion? If I have 2 of these engraved, can I just cast Valentina for blue black? Like, I'd be down for that. Card's great. Suddenly very playable. Finally got the best magic girl in FoW. Okay, moving on. We got Pang Tong, the Awakened Phoenix. So 2 red, 6/6 villain. Enter this card deals X 100 damage to each J resonator your opponent controls, where X is your dragon power. Plus 5 or 2 red, you gain 5 dragon power. This card deals 500 damage to each player, which then if you have Zhuge Liang on field would then refund you a red and only deals 2 damage to you. Revolution, flying, enter, double your dragon power. Get your power scouters out. Power level's gonna get big. Exponential growth is scary. Especially because at this point in time, it very much seems like dragon power is just going to be a concept, not cards or anything like that. You just have dragon power. So, you know, if you have 40 dragon power and you order this thing, you are going to nuke the board for 8,000 damage. And there is nothing your opponent can do to stop it outside of ability cancels. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool card.
Yeah.
It's a cool card.
So I love this card for a lot of reasons. Unless you cancel the enter effect, this thing will be doing at least 500 damage to your opponent's board, which is nice because you're ordering this card out and you're gaining 5 dragon power from that,
which
right?
then will become 10. So which then actually is
So what will happen is the enter will happen, right? It'll see the 5, if I'm reading this right, and then your dragon power will double.
You can order them in any order you want, so you can actually have
it simultaneous.
Because they're simultaneous.
You'll
you can gain 5, then double it, then burn the board for 10. So at minimum, if you order this card, you're burning the board for 10 damage. At minimum.
The first time.
The first time.
If you have no dragon power and you're just casting this card, it's a 10 damage to the entire field.
2-drop 6/6 flyer that it becomes a dragon and will burn the board for 10 damage.
And it's a beast. So beast support.
Yeah. Hope we get a card that says lose dragon power to counter this. Maybe. It comes down to, so the biggest thing about dragon power as a concept is whenever you have these abilities that like people can't interact with, is like, what's the end game of it? Right? And the point becomes, is the end game... is the end game of dragon power enough that he doesn't just have bad matchups where he doesn't have enough time or he can't successfully resolve the cards to get him to a high enough dragon power level to matter? And that's a big piece, right? And I would like to also point out that there is a handy dandy card called Witch of Scorched Fire or Witch of Quenched Fire. So like, we do have cards that just tell Dragon Flame to be like, that's cute. You can sit down now.
There's definitely a good floodgate against this deck.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, my hope is that this deck is actually big enough of a threat that people are like, you know, I might actually have to side in the Witch of Quenched Fire.
Yeah.
Because I heard it's seen no play.
Correct. And it's a promo, a beautiful promo. Absolutely beautiful promo. Okay, moving on to the next red card, we have Dragon Crystal. Let's see. One red edition, enter, draw a card, X, where X is the number of times you have already played this ability this game. So the first time is 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. This card deals 200 damage to target player or J Resonator. Force Resonance Flame, pay 2 red. It becomes an X100 Dragon Resonator with flying until end of turn, where X is your dragon power. It is still an addition. So a nice little sync, nice little will sync to be able to ping stuff for not a ton of damage. But it is nice, and then it is just gonna, if your opponent doesn't remove it, like we said before, dragon power mattering, right? If you get to 30 dragon power, and you haven't dealt with this addition that I stuck on maybe turn 2 incidentally, then suddenly I pay 2 red and I have a 30/30 flying thing coming at your face. So cool card.
Yeah.
Cool card.
So explain to me how the X values work here, because there are 2 X values. Should the latter one just be read in my brain as a Y value?
No, it's the same.
Or is the X values are the same?
It'll match. So
X, where X is the number of times you've already played this ability, does not
sure.
refer to dragon power.
Correct. The X in the 2 abilities is independent of each other. So the X in the first ability refers to the cost of the ability that you burned, and the X in the second ability refers to your dragon power. The reason why Gil Lapis,
just so people know,
the reason why Gil Lapis had X and Y is because of the fact that in the same effect he is referring to 2 different numbers, so it has to have 2 different letters. This, because it is one, they're each independent effects, they will be able to refer to different things as X.
There you go.
I think actually Gil Lapis might be the very... I'm trying to think if we've had any other card that refers to 2 different values at the same effect. This might be our first.
There was a really, really old one.
Was there?
I think it was Big Bang.
that dealt with an X
Big
and
Bang
a Y.
Revolution.
That dealt with an X and a
Where a
Y.
resonator you control is destroyed, 2 target resonators gain plus X plus Y until end of turn,
Plus
where
X
X
plus
is
Y.
the destroyed monster's attack, and Y is the destroyed resonator's defense.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Next up,
so
we have
OG.
Mechanized Fender. It is 1 blue, 1 colorless machine beast. Villain. When this card is destroyed, you may search your deck for a machine, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your deck. You may play this card from outside the game as long as it is revealed by paying 1 black instead of paying its 2-drop cost. Revolution, flying, and non-machine J/resonators your opponent controls lose all abilities. This means no enter effects. This means no activate abilities. This means nothing. They are literally vanilla bodies on the field, except any ability granted to the thing by the order card. Because remember, the reminder text of orders says that the abilities granted by this order cannot be removed in any way. This is a good card. This is a strong. This is a strong card.
Is Bird now?
Is Bird, much Bird. This is a good floodgate. It is a cool floodgate. I think it's well designed. I think that there are things that already exist in the meta that can stop it. I think that it is something that you have to take into consideration in terms of deck building. Like, I can't have, not that we were doing this anyway, but like, you can't have a deck that just relies on enter effects to kill stuff. Like, you need actual removal spells to be able to deal with it. We've already seen this kind of effect popping up in Alice decks from Linosfaria. And so people are already kind of responding to that. This is inherently better than Linosfaria. It's simultaneously better and worse than Linosfaria. It's better because it's during both players' turns, which is great. It's worse because it only hits J resonators and not all things your opponent controls, because that was a big part of Linosfaria. It's also worse because there is infinitely more removal to kill it than there is Linosfaria, and Linosfaria has Eternal. So, pros and cons. It is nice.
Different cards.
Yeah, different cards. It is nice that it searches for a machine. Like, again, if we see other stuff that lets a machine reveal a machine for decks like Deus Ex Machina, then suddenly this card is like, okay, I see what's going on here. Deus Ex, he come from future. He also used villain. Like, sure. Card's pretty cool. I dig this card a lot.
Yeah. And it could be a 1-drop too if you reveal it in any other way outside of Typhid, which is what I like too.
Yeah.
It's a 6/6
that
floats.
There's no force resonance tied to this card, which I think is very nice. It's just it's a nice card to have sitting in your sideboard to be able to make use of if we have a way to reveal it. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Could this also be a tool for Odin? Like in games 2 and 3?
Maybe.
I have ideas.
You have ideas? I dig it.
I have ideas.
I like that this is like suddenly potentially like I get some Loki vibes off of this, where like you could do some pretty interesting things with Loki using his bat. I also will note that Loki can just absolutely kill this card. Like, you can't play this card against Loki because all they will do is just immediately order and then immediately kill it. So like, no one can use his own good boy against him or against her. No one can use Fenrir against Loki. Paul's back. Christopher, glad to have you here. Space Beast, collect these cards for the art. The art's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Action Jackson, the art on these cards is better than the new era of MTG, so I started playing FoW. Glad to have you here.
Also, can we just talk about the flavor text on Fenrir?
The goodest boy. The Mechanized Fender.
The Mechanized Fender no longer was Loki's good boy. BOI. And went ballistic.
I love it. The flavor text when it's been on cards has been so on point, and I just
We're getting into like levels of flavor now, and I love it.
Yeah, it's good.
It's wonderful.
Speaking of, hello Luffy the card. I don't know. Speaking
No,
of
Luffy, no,
card
dodge it.
we have mechanization. One blue chant that is also a machine. Keep that in mind. Quick cast, destroy target machine J/resonator you control. If you do, you may search your deck for a non-chant machine with total cost equal to the total cost of this card destroyed this way and put it into the field. Then put 6 +1/+1/+1 counters on it and shuffle your deck. When this card becomes revealed from outside the game, draw a card. One thing to note, this card specifically says if you do. So if your opponent, so before you're like, oh, I'm just going to stack multiple of these in a row and do something stupid, only one of them will resolve because you have to successfully kill something with it in order to be able to put it back, in order to be able to cheat something else in. Keep that in mind. Also, why is this card One Piece? Also, like, why is the artwork for this One Piece? This is a cool card. I like this a lot. It's Deus Ex Machina support. It becomes another machine for Typhon. I think Typhon probably just plays 1 in the sideboard because there is no way possible for him to cast it. And there's no way this card can be cast from the sideboard, but it does count as a different machine. So then you're just like, well, I don't really need to hit any of my other machines. Guess I'll reveal this and get it out of the way and have another name towards Union of the 7. It's a cool card. It's good for Deus Ex Machina. It's good for old school Arthur because it generates +1/+1 counters. And it's Alice's castling. So, like, blue cards, dodge and removal.
You know.
How dare you try to kill my own thing? I'll kill it instead and get a better thing. Yeah.
The article mentions that using mechanization with Fenrir gets you 2 cards.
Yeah.
One from the mechanization effect and a second one from Fenrir.
Yeah. Fenrir gets you a search.
So it's really good to do on the end of your opponent's turn, going into your turn, especially in Arthur, because you can kill your own Lancelot and then get another Lancelot from the deck.
Yeah, a bigger Lancelot.
That's amazing.
Can he beat Goku, though? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, this card is very cool. This card has implications for a lot of different blue rulers, both in New Frontiers and outside of New Frontiers. A card like this, to me, suddenly makes Deus Ex feel like he has a deck that could be more cohesive, because it does say, keep in mind that it does say a non-chance machine. So like your opponent's about to kill a 3-drop or something, you kill it and go grab Deus Ex the Edition, or you know, the Edition or whatever. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. And I'm excited to go back and actually tool around and try to make a fuller machine Deus Ex Machina deck. Because right now Deus Ex has always felt kind of gimmicky and not like he's had enough machines to really justify it. But with this, suddenly it's like, oh, you're about to kill my Guinevere? Well, I'll kill her myself, and then I'll go get a 1-drop actual machine, like a Titor's gimmick or something else like that, or you know, something to that effect. So I'm excited to see what better responses to improve consistency Deus Ex is able to make using this card. It also definitely makes me think that we're going to see more Deus Ex support in this set as it comes out. Yeah.
Well, I would also say, like, going into a Wanderer format, this is a machine staple card. Like,
yes.
Like, this should be in your staple pile all of the time.
Yeah, for any kind of machine deck. 4 of if you're playing machines.
Yes.
Absolutely. Card is good. That is it for tonight. That's all we have for tonight. Brings us right up to the end mark. Overall, I continue to be excited. I am impressed by how much, even up to this point, I'm already impressed by how much support for older rulers we're getting within the cluster. 2 had like some incidental support cards, but not really a lot. It was more just like generic support cards that anybody could use, except for like Nyarlathotep doll. It was mostly just base. So the fact that we're seeing more dedicated or like directly applicable support for set rulers from set 2 is very cool to me. I look forward to seeing how the rest of this final set of the cluster plays out. Cool stuff. Paul, any closing thoughts?
I would say this set is shaping up to be a very interesting set for blue
Yeah.
and for red. I'd say my third most interested color here is white. And then for the first time in a very long time, I feel like the darkness and the green cards are not super great, except for the supers.
I think the
Right.
darkness cards are pretty okay, but very specific. Like
Yes,
outside
very
of
niche.
like Deus Ex Machina, or sorry, outside of like Galapis. Like Galapis is kind of generically good, but the other ones have been just like Typhon. And I'm like, okay,
Or like
I get it.
Athenia,
Yeah,
like Typhon or Athenia, those two.
yeah,
So I'm interested that other colors are actually getting a little bit more love.
yeah.
Which is really great to see because for a long time, like green and black have been like the best
Green,
colors
black,
in the
green,
game.
black, green, black, green, black.
Like Jeremy's colors.
Hey, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm excited. We'll be back next week with more spoiler talk. Hopefully, maybe even this week we might get our Ruler School exclusive spoilers. I don't have them yet, but I'm trying to see if we get those soon. I do. Maybe halfway in R&D, they made the thought of the change to Wanderer. Maybe we're already seeing some of that. Maybe we're already seeing some of that application of the thought of making cards in the main deck more applicable to Wanderer. That would make sense. Order does not trigger the. I don't think Order triggers the flip of inverses, but Reflect, Refrain, Test. Correct, because it's not doing Judgment. Ordering is a different rules process than Judgment. So keep that in mind. This week's we're gonna try to get caught up on deck profiles. Apologies for all the delays. Paul's going to provide you the deck profile for his deck that you're gonna see on Wednesday, being Ice Shackles Olivia, a Wanderer feature match. So Paul's gonna get that deck profile up for us later this week, and I'm gonna try to get caught up on the ones that I haven't done yet. I'm sorry. That is it for us for tonight, though. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, until next time, this is Gmo73, and I am joined by Paul Reisman.
Brought to you by the letter T for Machine Tribal.
There you go. Saying class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.